Jumping straight in, this is the first page that you'll see when you open Fusion 360. It is a blank page with an untitled project at the top. And what we're going to do over the next video or two is just go through everything that you see here and all of the settings that you need to know before you even start modeling anything. We're going to start in the top left. If I go to the top left button, you'll notice before anything that if I hover over almost anything, it'll give me a short description of what that button does. So in this case, we're showing the data panel. If I click on that, it opens up Fusion 360's filing system. This has all of your projects, all of your folders, as well as being able to control all of the members that you're collaborating with in a project. This is the main home screen of your data panel, and it'll list all of your projects going down. I have a lot of projects, so I've just set it to pinned projects, but you can select all projects, pinned, which you can pin or unpin on the right hand side here, owned by me or shared with me if you want to see things, projects that other people have shared with you. To keep it clean, I'm just sticking on pinned so that you can see roughly what it's going to look like for you as well. Now you might have already created a project called My First Project or First Exercises, something like that. It depends on what you've been doing. But here I have one called CAD Exercises. So I'm going to double click on that to open up this project. Within here you'll see a bunch of different designs that I've made and models, as well as a couple of folders. The first thing to note is that if you have another file that you want to bring into Fusion 360, you can click the Upload button, and from here you can select files from your computer's file system or drag and drop them straight in. We don't need to do that right now, but it's a good thing to know about. You can control your folders by creating a new folder, and within them you'll have a bunch of other models and projects. Here I have, say, an air cover. Now this is one that I designed a while ago, and you can see on the right hand side here that it has a version. If I click on this, it's a V6, it's a version button, and this gives me all of the details that I need to know about the project. Specifically, one of the most useful parts of Fusion is that because it's cloud-based, you can see all of the different versions that have happened before. They're all stored. So I can show all 6 versions, when they happened. I designed this in 2017, it looks like, and it was all done by me. But you can see the times, the dates, and it even allows you to see the little notes. So whenever you save something in Fusion 360, you can add a little note to say what you've done in that save. So I can see that in this save I added a half rib, here I added a lip, and in this one I added the appearance to make it a glossy black. You can see what files it might use. So if you've brought in a subassembly, you might be able to see what's been used in this file, and also what it is used in. So if this file is added into another subassembly, then you can see that bit, as well as any of the drawings that you made. We'll go through those in a little bit more detail later. To open a project or a model, double click on it, and you'll see it open up in your window. A couple other things I just want to cover in the main data panel. You can see the web version of Fusion 360, which is the A360 web, by clicking on this button. This opens up your Fusion team. Now what a Fusion team is it's a level above collaboration on a project. If you have a small group of people, if you're in university for example, like I am, and you have a group for a project, you can create a new team, and that will have all of those people in it, and you control multiple different projects within that. You can access your teams from the top left of your data panel. You can see I have a number of teams here, but all of you will at least start with a single user storage down below, or your own team. It might not necessarily be called that. This will be your own personal team, and it allows you to put all of your personal data into this team. But if you do want to create a team, or you want to join somebody else's team, you can press create or join a team, and you can click between these and it'll open up a fresh data panel with new lists of projects. Additionally, if you want to create a new project in your data panel, you have to go back to the home and click new project, where you can create a new project. Now, the difference between a project and a folder is a project is much like something that you would do as a whole. It might have all of your information in it, whereas a folder might have specific parts of that project. So for example, I might be working with a friend, and I could invite him to that project to do the work with me on it. I could also have within that project folders which included, say, engineering drawings, renders, or multiple versions of my model if I wanted to back up my model, for example. But the main project would be the overall model and structure that you need for that one specific project. So here I have my CAD exercises project, and within that I have an ES192, which is my module code coursework project that I did. I can open that, and I can see that within here I have a further folder for renders. I have a bunch of other parts as well. To go back, you can either click on the previous folder or click on Home. As I said before, you can collaborate with people in specific projects, and you can see this on the other side of the data panel. So at the top you have data on the left, and you have people on the right. If I click on people, I can see that I'm the only person in this project, but if I wanted to invite somebody, I could type in their email here, and click invite, and they would be brought in. And then you can select exactly what you want them to see, whether you want them to be an editor, or if you just want them to be able to see what you've been doing as a viewer. These are the main two parts of the data panel, but essentially it allows you to store all of your items in a really organized way, and keeping an organization, especially on a large project, makes a huge difference. I've opened up my air cover. This is the latest version. You can see air cover v6 at the top. I'm just going to close the data panel, and I'm going to go through this top menu bar here. We've seen the show data panel button. We have a file option. Now this is a very standard file option. You'll see it on a lot of other softwares, CAD or not. It has standard things such as new design, open, recover documents is a very useful one. So if your computer's crashed and you need to come back and recover some documents, it should automatically pop up. But if it doesn't, come back and check here to see if you can find the documents that you might have lost. You have save, save as, export, share. View is another really useful one. If something has disappeared on your main user interface and you can't find it, come to the file option, press view. There are some keyboard shortcuts that you might have accidentally pressed. So this is a good place to come check to see if everything is showing as it should be. Another thing to note is that with Fusion 360, because it's cloud-based, sharing your file is so much easier. If you want to share a file with somebody who isn't necessarily in your project or collaborating, you can create a public link that allows them to open your file in a browser, in a Google Chrome browser, for example, and see what's been going on. There are other ways to share it, but this is a very useful option as well. We'll go through some of these in a little bit more detail a bit later. Additionally, we have save. As I said before, if I change something, you would be able to see, if I turn off that and press save, you'd be able to see a version description, and here you can type in what has happened in this save. And that means that in your version history that we saw on your data panel, you can see what's happened in each save. You have undo and redo, very standard. And then, as I said, you had your tabs. So if you open multiple parts, multiple models, you'll have multiple tabs that appear in each team. But if you do switch teams, be aware that these might not be visible anymore, they might change. You can close a tab on the right hand side of each tab, much like you can any other tab. And then additionally you have a new design which allows you to open a new tab and create something new. Finally, on the top right here we have extensions, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail at a slightly higher level. You have a job status, so if you are running a cloud simulation or a local render, for example, these jobs will appear here. Currently I have nothing, so nothing showing up. You have a notification center that will tell you about updates or issues. And finally, well not finally, but the last main one here is the help icon, and this is really useful. If you are struggling at any point, if you are doing some practice on your own, I would recommend looking at this. You can show what's called the learning panel. And what this does is it gives you a step-by-step process on how you should use each and every tool. So if I started using a tool, for example the extrude tool, which I've just clicked on here, you'll see that the extrude tab will appear in the learning panel. And it gives you all the detail that you need on how to use that tool. It's a really useful tool, and I would absolutely recommend if you're struggling at the beginning, you just turn this on and it just stays there and you can see exactly what you're meant to be doing. Once you get a bit more confident, you can hide it again just by closing it. You have some other help tools as well. documentation, you can access the community forums, which are really, really useful, and you can go through various other support and diagnostic issues as well. Finally, on the right, you have your profile. Now, if you click on this, you can access your Autodesk account, your profile, feedback, sign out, standard stuff. The only other one I want to mention here is preferences. Now, there shouldn't hopefully be anything that you need to change here, but it is good to be aware that this is where your preferences are. The only one that I would recommend taking a look at potentially is if you have come from a different software, such as SolidWorks, or the only one I'd recommend is that if you've come from a different software that you might have been using for CAD, you take a look at the pan, zoom, and orbit shortcuts. So in Fusion 360, we press Control or Shift and we use the middle mouse button to orbit around or pan. In other softwares that's different, but you can change that with this drop-down menu here to change it to the defaults on other softwares if you're used to that. For this project, I'm going to be going through using the standard Fusion settings. So if you have changed that, just be aware that your settings might now be different. There are a bunch of other settings here, so if you're interested, feel free to take a look and make sure everything's what you want it to be. But for now, you should be okay to leave this.